September 11th was obviously a history-changing event, I think, for all of us. I was in the White House that morning in the West Wing when the airplanes struck the World Trade Center. Secret Service came into my office and evacuated me to the Presidential Emergency Operations Center underneath the White House, where I spent the day in communication with the President and other senior officials in our government. We were especially concerned that the attack of 9/11 in fact was an act of war. It was a moment that forced us to sit down and think about how we would respond to an act of war against the United States. We were successful over the next 7.5 years that we were in office in defeating all further attempts to launch mass casualty strikes against the U.S. We spent a lot of time and effort making certain that the President and I were separated frequently. One of our big concerns was the possibility that terrorists might launch an attack that was aimed at decapitating the U.S. leadership. One of the things that I worked hard on 9/11 itself was to make certain that we stayed separated as much as possible so that a single strike wouldn't hit both of us. One of the most important things we did in the intelligence arena was to set up the terrorist surveillance program. It allowed us to intercept communications coming into the country from overseas, and we were especially focused on numbers that we believe were associated with an al-Qaeda figure or for some reason were suspicious in nature. That early warning was vital in terms of our being able to find out what was going on inside the United States and what the terrorists were planning by way of future attacks. I'm convinced, the President as well, that this did indeed allow us to prevent attacks, to disrupt attacks, and to save the lives of a good many Americans. In Iraq, we were involved, obviously, in a difficult situation because we had in Saddam Hussein, an individual who had started 2 wars, who had produced and used weapons of mass destruction against his own people. And it was vital that we complete the action that we'd begun in 2003. We would send additional troops to implement that strategy. We did that with General Petraeus, General Odierno. They performed magnificently. The troops did a great job. And in the early part of 2007, we added several thousand additional troops, primarily in Baghdad, but they were successful. It was a courageous decision. President Bush received a lot of criticism for it, but he did absolutely the right thing. And I think it will be viewed from a historical standpoint of the future that it'll be one of the most important steps that we took, one of the most important decisions made during George Bush's administration.